There is a very specific, almost physical sensation that I think we've all chased at one point or another. It's not just enjoying a book. It's that feeling of falling under a spell.
And we don't mean a literal magic spell, though. I guess considering today's topic, that would be pretty appropriate. You mean the narrative spell?
Exactly. The narrative spell. I was looking through the materials we pulled for this deep dive.
Yeah.
And there was this anecdote that just hit me right in the solar plexus.
Oh.
It was describing the experience of reading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And I want you to just picture this for a second. It's 2 a.m.
Okay.
You're leaning against your bedroom wall because your back hurts from sitting on the floor for like 4 hours straight.
Been there.
The lamp is dim, probably too dim for your eyes, let's be honest. And you've got a CD player spinning some fluty ambient guitarro songs on repeat.
That is incredibly specific. And yet I think everyone listening right now has their own version of that snapshot,
For sure.
And maybe it wasn't guitarro. Maybe it was the sound of rain against the window or the hum of an air conditioner in the summer. But the feeling, that feeling where the walls of your actual room just dissolve.
Yeah.
And the world on the page becomes the only reality. That is completely universal.
It's that larger-than-life feeling. And I think for a whole generation of people, Harry Potter was the series that taught them that feeling even existed.
Oh, it defined it.
But here is the thing, and this is why I'm so excited about today. We aren't just here to fanboy and fangirl over the series.
Though, let's be real, we probably will a little bit.
Oh, inevitably. But our mission today is different. We are going to pop the hood. We want to look at the engine. We want to deconstruct the mechanics of that spell. Yeah. How did J.K. Rowling actually do it?
Right. It's so easy to look at a cultural phenomenon like this and just say, well, it was magic. But writing isn't magic. No. It's engineering. It's a series of deliberate choices and structural beams and, even psychological tricks. We've actually distilled this down into 7 specific lessons.
7 lessons.
7 nuts and bolts techniques that turn a collection of words to a world.
So whether you're an aspiring writer staring at a blank page, wondering how to make your reader care, or you're just someone who loves knowing how the magic trick is performed.
How the sausage is made.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This deep dive is for you. We're going to cover everything from the architecture of relationships all the way to the concept of invisible guns.
Invisible guns.
Chekhov's guns. We'll get there. But let's start with the people. Or, the wizard giant. Let's talk about lesson 1, the web of relationship.
This is such a crucial starting point because I think a lot of new writers make a really fundamental mistake. They design a protagonist, right?
The hero.
And then they design a few side characters to support that protagonist. It's all very linear. It's like a wheel with spokes.
Yeah, the side characters are just there to hand the hero a sword or ask, what do we do now, Harry?
Exactly. They exist only in relation to the hero. But when you look at the architecture of Harry Potter, it's not a wheel at all. It's a web. A sticky, messy, complex web. The characters don't just exist in relation to Harry, they have their own gravity. They have relationships with each other. And, more importantly, the roles shift.
What do you mean by shifting roles?
Well, in a flatter story, a character wears a name tag. It says, I am the mentor. I am the bully. I am the love interest. In this series, those tags get swapped constantly. Someone starts as an enemy, becomes an ally, then maybe a mentor, then maybe a tragedy. They evolve.
The notes highlight a perfect example of this, and it's one of my absolute favorites. Dobby the house elf.
Oh, Dobby is a masterclass in what we might call the antagonistic ally.
Antagonistic ally. I like that because when we first meet Dobby in Chamber of Secrets, let's be honest, he is a nightmare.
He's a total nightmare. He is structurally the villain of the first act of that book.
Wow. Okay, break that down.
Well, think about what he actually does. He intercepts Harry's mail, which makes Harry feel totally isolated and unloved by his friends.
Right. That's a classic villain move. Isolate the hero.
He smashes the pudding in the Dursleys' kitchen, which nearly gets Harry locked up forever. He magically seals the barrier to platform 934, risking Harry's expulsion.
And he even sends a rogue bludger to break Harry's arm.
He tries to maim. If you strip away the context, his actions are indistinguishable from a villain. He is placing obstacle after obstacle between the hero and his...
That's so true. I never thought of it that way.
Precisely. And this creates a really interesting psychological state for the reader called cognitive.
Okay.
We are so annoyed by his actions, we just want him to stop. But because we know his motive is trying to save Harry's life in his own misguided way, we can't hate him.
You can't.
We're forced to be frustrated and sympathetic at the exact same time.
And that friction is what keeps you turning the pages, right? You want to see that resolve.
Yeah.
You need the action to finally align with the intent.
And when it finally does, that's the payoff. The source material emphasizes that the emotional weight of their friendship in the later book, Dobby's loyalty, his sacrifice, that is only earned because we went through that friction in book 2.
Which means we absolutely have to talk about the resolution of that arc, the sock scene.
The sock scene. It is iconic for a reason.
It's the climax of Chamber of Secrets. Harry has just defeated the basilisk. He's tired. He's covered in grime and blood.
He's been through it.
And he sees Lucius Malfoy bullying Dobby, and Harry realizes he has to do something.
But notice the mechanic. This is what's so brilliant. Harry doesn't overpower Lucius with some powerful spell.
No.
He uses wits. He tricks Lucius. He takes Tom Riddle's diary, destroyed the monster, and he stuffs his own slimy, gross sock inside it.
And just hands it to him.
And Lucius, in his disgust, just throws this thing at Dobby.
Master has given Dobby a sock. Master has presented Dobby with clothes. Dobby is free.
It's a moment of pure, unadulterated triumph. But here is the technical brilliance. Rowling doesn't just focus on Dobby's happiness.
Right.
She immediately focuses on Lucius Malfoy's reaction. The text describes him as lunging at Harry, looking like he's about to kill him right there in the hallway. He screams, "You've lost me, my servant boy."
That reaction validates Dobby's importance, doesn't it?
Completely. It shows that Dobby wasn't just a prop. He was a valuable asset that the villain is absolutely furious to. It elevates the house elf to a real player.
That's the takeaway, that.
Exactly. It gives a quote-unquote minor character a spotlight moment that actually shifts the plot. So for writers, the lesson is, don't let your minor characters just carry spears in the background. Give them a moment where they change the entire trajectory of the story.
Speaking of minor characters who change the trajectory, we need to talk about Luna Lovegood.
Luna, the anti-Hermione.
The notes focus on her introduction in Order of the Phoenix, and I think this is such a perfect example of how to bond characters who should, on paper, have absolutely nothing in common.
Oh, for sure. Let's just look at the character dynamics here. Harry, at this point in the series, angry, traumatized by what happened with Cedric. He's this angst-filled teenager who feels like no one in the world.
He's very grounded in a really gritty, painful reality.
And Luna, she's Luna.
Yeah.
She's floating, she's wearing radish earrings, she believes in conspiracies about the Minister for Magic baking goblins into pies. She is operating on a completely different frequency from everyone else.
So as a writer, how do you bond those?
Right, you can't just have them sit together at lunch and talk about Quidditch. They are fundamentally too different. Rowling needs a bridge.
And that bridge is the Thestrals.
The Thestral. This is the scene where they are climbing into the carriages to go up to the castle. For 4 straight years, these carriages have appeared to pull themselves.
Yeah, just a bit of magic you take for granted.
But this year, Harry looks up and he sees these skeletal, reptilian, bat-winged horses.
And it's terrifying. Not just because they look scary, but because he looks at Ron and Hermione, his best friends.
His anchors.
And they don't see them. They are looking right at the horses and seeing empty space. And you can feel Harry thinking, this is it. I finally cracked. I'm seeing.
The isolation in that moment, help feel it in your gut. And that is the entry point for Luna. She's just sitting in the corner of the carriage, reading her magazine upside down.
Of course.
And she looks at him with those, those protuberant eyes and says in that dreamy voice, "You're not going mad. I can see them too."
It's such a moment of pure relief, even if it is coming from Looney Lovegood, who everyone else dismisses.
But here's the why.
Yeah.
Why can they see them? We learn later that Thestrals are only visible to those who have witnessed death and fully processed.
Harry saw Cedric die at the end of the last, and we find out Luna saw her mother die in a magical act.
That is the bridge. It's not a hobby they share. It's not a personality trait. It is a shared, profound trauma. This reveal recontextualizes their entire relation from that moment.
They're not just two outcasts sitting together anymore.
No. They are 2 people who have stared into the abyss and come back.
And that bonds them in a way that even Ron and Hermione can't touch at that moment.
Exactly. Ron and Hermione can sympathize with Harry, but they can't empathize. They can't see the horses. Luna can't. The writing lesson here is just incredibly powerful. If you want to create a deep, meaningful bond between unlikely characters, find their shared scar.
Find their shared scar.
Find the thing they have both lost or the horrible thing they have both seen. That is far stronger glue than a shared interest collects.
Man, that's good. Find the shared scar. Okay, so we have this web of relationship, but a web is only as strong as its strands, right? The characters themselves have to be sturdy, which leads us perfectly into lesson 2, complexity of character.
Or, as I like to call it, nobody is just one thing.
This is something the series does so well, especially as it matures. It kind of starts with very clear archetypes, right? Gryffindors are brave and good. Slytherins are ambitious and bad.
Yeah, the lines are pretty clear in the first book, but then Rowling starts to chip away at that. She deconstructs her own archetype. And I think the bravest thing she does is deconstruct the good characters.
Oh, absolutely. I remember reading Order of the Phoenix and then Deathly Hallows and just having my entire view of James Potter completely shattered.
It's jarring, isn't it? Harry grows up worshiping this idealized version of his father. James is the hero who died to save him. But then we get Snape's memories. We see James as a teenager. And he wasn't a hero. He's a bully. He was arrogant. He was cruel to people he considered beneath him, like Snape.
It's really uncomfortable to read. You feel Harry's disillusionment.
It is. But it makes James a human being rather than a statue.
Yeah.
And she does the exact same thing with Dumbledore. We think of him as this benevolent, all-knowing, grandfatherly god.
The ultimate mentor.
But then we learn about his youth with Grindelwald. He was, for a time, a fanboy of a magical Hitler. He flirted with the idea of wizard supremacy.
For the greater good. That phrase is chilling.
It is. He had a lust for power that he had to spend the rest of his life actively suppressing. These flaws don't ruin the characters, they deepen them. They show that goodness isn't a state.
It's a choice.
It's a choice you have to make every single day, sometimes against your own worst.
And on the flip side of that, she humanizes the villains.
Yeah.
We see Voldemort not just as this snake-faced monster, but as Tom Riddle, an unwanted, unloved child in an orphanage who is just desperate to be special.
It doesn't excuse him, but it explains him. And then there's Snape. Well, Snape is the ultimate gray character.
He's the most debated character in modern literature for a reason.
He's petty, he's vindictive, he bullies children, he's a horrible teacher, but he is also capable of a love so powerful and so enduring that he plays a double agent for nearly 2 decades. He loved Harry's mother more than life itself.
But I want to zoom in on one specific character that the notes highlight, because I think this character represents the most heartbreaking kind of complexity, and that's Neville Longbottom.
Oh, Neville is such a fascinating case study, because if Dobby is the antagonistic ally, Neville is what I'd call the tragic alternative.
The tragic I like that.
Because for the first few books, we start out thinking he's just the comic relief, right? He's the clumsy kid who loses his toad, the kid who falls off his broomstick.
We laugh at him. I mean, the reader's positioned to laugh at him.
Right. But then, in Order of the Phoenix, we get the backstory, and it stops being funny immediately. We learn that the prophecy about the one to defeat the Dark Lord, it could have referred to Harry or Neville.
He could have been the chosen one.
He could have been. But instead of his parents dying, they suffered a fate that, some might say is even worse. They were tortured into insanity by Bellatrix Lestrange.
Let's talk about that scene in St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies. It's one of the best written scenes in the entire series for character work.
It is. Harry, Ron, and Hermione stumble upon Neville visiting his parents' grandmother, and it's just excruciating.
His parents are there, but they aren't there. They don't recognize.
And Neville's mother, Alice, she shuffles up to him and she hands him a Drool's best blowing gum.
And his grandmother, who is this very formidable woman, says, "Oh, throw it in the bin, Neville. She's always giving you those."
He doesn't throw it away.
No, he puts it in his pocket.
That moment, oh man, it just destroys me every time I read it. That small gesture tells us everything we need to know about Neville Longbottom. He treasures that track because it is the only connection, the only gift he has from the mother who should have.
It recontextualizes everything about him. Suddenly, his clumsiness, his forgetfulness, his lack of confidence, it's not just a character quirk anymore.
It's trauma. He's living under the crushing weight of his grandmother's expectation, the shadow of his parents' tragedy.
And despite all that, and this is why Neville is a true hero, he doesn't turn bitter. He doesn't become a Draco Malfoy. He keeps this gentle disposition. He finds his strength in herbology, in nurturing things.
The lesson for writers here is so clear, it's practically screaming at.
Give everyone a past.
Yes. Even the kid in the back of the class who's always dropping his books.
Yeah.
If you want him to be three-dimensional, you have to know why his hands are shaking. You have to know what happened to him before page 1 of.
Which actually segues perfectly into our next point. Because once you know who a character is, their past, their trauma, their core personality, you have to figure out what they sound like.
Lesson 3, the mechanics of voice.
This is one of those things that when it's done well, you don't even notice it. It's invisible. But when it's done poorly, it just ruins the book.
Oh, completely. If every character sounds like the author, you have a major problem.
The immersion just shatters.
Right. If the 11-year-old street urchin sounds exactly like the 100-year-old wizard king, your world feels fake. Rowling is an absolute master of giving characters distinct fingerprints.
Okay, I want to test this. The notes suggested a little quiz, and I think we should do it.
I'm in.
I'm going to read a line of dialogue, just the text, no names, no context, and I want to see if you can identify the speaker purely by the syntax and the diction.
Okay, I'm ready. Bring it on.
Quote, "Number 1, the females got sort of sucker things on their bellies. I think they might beat or suck blood."
That is, without a doubt, Rubius Hagrid, 100.
Correct. But how do we know? What are the tells?
Well, first there's the obvious stuff. It's the phonetics. Rowling writes his accent right into the text. Terror instead of two, sorta instead of sorta, females.
Right.
But it's also the content. Who else would talk about sucker things and blood sucking with that kind of casual, almost affectionate interest? It shows his background. He's not academic. He's practical. And his reckless, boundary-pushing love for dangerous creatures.
Okay, very well put. Quote number 2, brace yourself. "I heard your father finally got his hands on some gold this summer, Weasley. Did your mother die of shock?"
Ugh, Draco Malfoy.
Yeah, you get an instant visceral reaction
No,
there.
it's just so nasty, isn't it? But look at the mechanics of it. First, the surname, Weasley. He almost never uses first names for people he considers beneath him. It's a status play. It creates distance. And then the topic, money and class. Malfoy's voice is almost always filtered through the lens of status, wealth, and pure blood hierarchy. That's his entire worldview.
Okay, last one. This one gives me shivers. Quote number 3. It is the view of the ministry that a theoretical knowledge will be more than sufficient to get you through your examination, which, after all, is what school is all about.
That is the horrifyingly bureaucratic, sickly, sweet voice of Dolores Umbridge.
So distinct.
It is. It's prim and proper. The grammar is impeccable. It is the view of the ministry. It's passive. It's distancing language. She hides her cruelty behind regulations and procedure.
She never says, I don't want you to learn spells.
No. She says theoretical knowledge will be sufficient. It's the banality of it's evil wrapped in paperwork and a pink cardigan.
So the lesson here is a classic one, but it's so important. It's show, don't tell.
It's the perfect example. Rowling doesn't have to write a paragraph telling us Umbridge was a controlling bureaucrat. She just lets her speak, and we know instantly who we're...
The notes have a great practical tip for writers. It suggests determining a character's primary emotion or their primary filter.
Right. Ask yourself, what does this character want in this conversation? What is their default mode? Malfoy wants to feel... Hagrid wants to share his enthusiasm. Umbridge wants to roll. Filter every sentence through that one. The voice will naturally...
And it's also important to remember that people code switch, you know?
Yeah.
Harry sounds different when he's shouting at Ron than when he's trying to be polite to Professor McGonagall.
That flexibility is what makes them character who talks the exact same way to their mom and their boss. Not a...
Okay, so we have complex characters with distinct voices. Now we need to put them somewhere. We need a world for them to live in.
Lesson 4, immersive world build, or as I prefer to call it, sensory surprises.
I like that, sensory surprises, because I think when people hear world building, they think of like maps and history books and 50 pages describing the political system of the Godlin Rebellion.
Which Rowling definitely has, to be fair. But that's not what immerses the reader in the moment. The trap many writers fall into is what we call purple prose.
Adjective soup, just drowning the reader in words.
Exactly. The dark, gloomy, mysterious, shadowy castle stood on the jagged, rocky, high hill. It's exhausting. Your brain just tunes it out after a while.
So how does Rowling avoid that? How does she make her world feel so solid?
She focuses on specificity and uniqueness. Let's just visualize the Great Hall at Hogwarts. It's one of the most famous settings in all of literature. If I ask you to describe it, what comes to mind immediately?
Floating camp, and the ceiling that looks like the night sky.
Right. Thousands of candles floating in midair. And a ceiling that isn't even a ceiling. It's bewitched to look like the weather outside. Now, notice what
What's that?
You didn't talk about the architectural style of the windows or the material of the floor or the type of wood the tables are made of.
Because those things are generic. Floating candles are not.
Exact. The description is actually quite sparse when you go back and look at it, but the details are what I'd call sensory ink. They are visually stunning and impossible to forget. The misty silver of the ghosts, the glittering golden plates that magically fill with food. She paints a picture with 3 or 4 bold, unique strokes rather than 1,000 tiny forgets.
There's another layer to this that I think is just brilliant. Using sensory details and dialogue to convey subtext. The notes bring up the Amortentia scene in Half-Blood Prince.
Oh, I love this scene. This is a masterclass in show don't tell when it comes to feelings and romance.
So for anyone who doesn't remember, Professor Slughorn is teaching them about Amortentia, which is the most powerful love potion in the world. And he explains that it smells different to everyone according to what attracts them.
And Hermione, ever the star pupil, volunteers to describe it. And she lists these things we totally associate with her. Freshly mown grass, new parchment, and then she says, and spearmint tooth. But the text says she turns bright pink, stops talking.
We know who the toothpaste is. It's Ron, but she doesn't say it. We have to infer it.
But then we get inside Harry's head. And this is the crucial part for the main plot. Harry leans over and he smells the
treacle tart, the woody smell of a broomstick handle, and something flowery he thought he might have smelled at the Burrow.
The Burrow, the Weasleys' home.
And specifically, Ginny.
But notice what's missing from that sentence. The text never says Harry realized he was in love with Ginny. It never says Harry smelled Ginny's perfume. It says he smelled something flowery.
It makes the reader do the math.
That is the key. When the reader connects those dots, wait, flowery, the Burrow. Oh my God, that's Ginny. They get a little hit of dopamine. They feel smart. They are participating in the story, not just consuming it. They solved the emotional puzzle themselves.
It's so much more effective than just stating the emotion.
Infinite. It's the difference between being told someone is in love and feeling that realization dawn on you yourself.
Okay, this is all fantastic. Moving on to lesson 5. We've got the world, we've got the characters. Now, how do we structure the story therein? This brings us to a concept that I think a lot of people know by name, but maybe don't understand the nuance of Chekhov's gun.
Named after the Russian playwright Anton Chekhov. And the classic rule is, if in the first act you've hung a pistol on the wall, then in the following acts it must be fired. Otherwise, don't put it there.
Basically, don't clutter your story with useless stuff. Everything should have a purpose, even if we don't know what that purpose is right away.
Right. But in a mystery series like Harry Potter, this takes on a specific form: foreshadowing and, more importantly, misdirection. Rowling is the queen of hiding the gun.
The notes give two great examples of this. One is a slow burn, and one is a much faster, more shocking plot twist. Let's start with the chocolate frog card.
This is the slow burn. In the very first book, on the train ride to Hogwarts, Harry buys a chocolate frog. He gets a Dumbledore card. He reads it out of curiosity, and it mentions Dumbledore's famous partner.
At the time, it just feels like world building. Oh, cool. Wizards have trading cards, just like us. It feels like flavor.
Exactly. It feels like flavor text in a video game. But 200 pages later, when the trio is desperately trying to figure out who Nicholas Flamel is and what the three-headed dog is guarding, Harry suddenly remembers the card. The clue was planted in Chapter 6 to solve the mystery in Chapter 13.
But the example that really, truly blows my mind, the one that I think is the best example of plotting in the whole series, is the diary in Chamber of Secrets.
Oh, this is next level. This is camouflage. The gun isn't just on the wall, it's hidden under a pile of...
So the plot of the book is that someone is opening the Chamber of Secrets. We eventually find out it's Ginny Weasley, who's being possessed by Tom Riddle's old diary. But the central mystery is, how did she get the diary?
And we find out at the very end that Lucius Malfoy... But here's the genius part. We saw him do it. We witnessed the crime at the beginning of the book at Flourish and Blott's bookstore.
But we all missed it. Why?
Because there was a fistfight happening. Arthur Weasley and Lucius Malfoy were brawling in the middle of the bookstore. Hagrid was breaking them up. It was total chaos.
It's a classic magician's trick. Look at my left hand so you don't see what my right hand is doing.
Exact. In the middle of all that shouting and shoving, Lucius picks up Ginny's old tattered Transfiguration book, insults her family's poverty, and thrusts the book back at her. He says, "Here, girl, take your book."
And that's the moment. That's when he slipped the diary inside.
The action giving the book back was perfectly justified by the character's emotion, which was being a condescending jerk. So we, the reader, didn't question it. We thought it was just a bullying moment. But it was actually the catalyst for the entire plot of the book.
That's what makes the book so rereadable. You go back and you're just screaming at the page, he's doing it right there, and no one sees.
And here is the secret for all the aspiring writers listening, which I think is really comforting. You don't have to be a plotting genius who plans this all out 5 years.
You don't.
No. Often, writers will write a draft, figure out the ending, and then go back to the beginning and gun. You can hang the rifle on the wall during the revision process.
That is a huge relief. So you can basically make yourself look like a mastermind in the final.
Precisely. The reader doesn't need to know you figured it out backwards. The trick still works.
Okay, let's talk about the elements we are using to build these plots. We're talking about wizards, wands, dragons, goblins. These aren't new ideas.
No, they are ancient, which leads us directly to less innovation tradition.
There is a fear I think a lot of writers have. It's all been done. You know, if I write about a wizard school, am I just ripping off Harry Potter? If I write about an elf, am I just ripping off Tolkien?
And the answer is, yes, you are ripped. But they ripped off someone else, who ripped off Norse mythology, who ripped off even older stories. The goal isn't to invent a new color, it's to paint a new picture with the existing color.
Something borrowed, something new.
Exactly. Rowling didn't invent the wizard or the wand or the broomstick, but she looked at the furniture of the fantasy genre and she asked, how can I make this mine? How can I add a twist?
Let's look at the Sorting Hat. In a standard fairy tale, a magical hat might make you invisible or grant you wisdom or something.
Right, it's a prop. But in Hogwarts, the hat is a sentient bureaucrat. It sings these long, elaborate songs every year, analyzes your psyche, literally argues with an 11-year-old boy. She took an object and made it.
Quit it. Witches have been riding brooms in folklore for centuries.
But usually just for transport. Rowling turned it into a complex, formalized sport. She created a league, World Cup, specific fouls, referees, celebrity players. She applied the logic of modern soccer, the mythology of flying broom.
And the wand. I feel like the wand lore in Harry Potter is deeper than it has any right.
It's incredible. She took the basic magic wand, usually just stick you wave, and gave it a whole pseudoscience. The concept of the wand chooses the wizard.
That idea alone changes everything. It means the tool has age. It's not just an inert object.
It creates a relationship. And then she added the core. Unicorn hair, dragon heartstring, phoenix feather, and all the different woods. Holly, yew, willow, each with its own properties.
And the concept of brother wand. The fact that Harry and Voldemort's wands share a core from the exact same phoenix.
That is a plot-driving innovation. It explains why they can't kill each other in a straight duel. It connects the hero and the villain on a deep, metaphysical level. She took a trope, the the magic wand and used it to reinforce her sentiment of connection.
So the advice here is, don't be afraid of clichés. You should hug the cliché and then spin it around.
Exactly. Innovation happens on the edge of tradition. Read history, read folklore, listen to podcasts like Myths and Legends. Take a goblin, but make him a banker. Take a ghost, but make him really, really bored. Take the familiar and just tilt it 15 degrees.
Innovation happens on the edge of tradition. I'm writing that down. Okay, we have arrived at our final lesson, lesson 7. And this is the big one. This is the reason we are still talking about these books all these years later.
This is the emotional core, or life's big question.
We can talk about plot mechanics and sensory details and phonetic accents all day long, and that's all fascinating. But if the story doesn't have a soul, none of that matters.
Correct. A perfectly structured story with no heart is just a manual. It's a blueprint. The reason Harry Potter endures is that underneath all the magic, it tackles the biggest, scariest questions of the human experience.
It's a children's book series that is completely obsessed with death.
It is. From the very first chapter, death is the driving force. Harry is an orphan because his parents died. Voldemort is a man desperately fleeing death. Flight from death is literally what his name means in French. The whole final book is about the Deathly Hallows, objects meant to conquer.
And Dumbledore acts as our guide through this philosophy. He's like the Greek chorus of the series, explaining the themes.
He is, and if you look at his key quotes, they aren't just plot they are essentially instructions for living.
Take this one. From the end of the first to the well-organized mind, death is but the next great event.
Think about what that tells a child or an adult. It reframes the scariest thing imaginable not as an end, but as a journey. It transforms fear into curiosity. That provides a profound, real comfort.
Or this one, which I think is the thesis statement for the entire cast of characters. It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our ability.
That is the antidote to imposter syndrome. It doesn't matter if you were born smart or strong or magical. It matters what you choose to do when the dragon is staring you in the face. It empowers the reader. You aren't defined by your circumstances. You are defined by your act.
And then the one that I think hits the hardest, the one that defines the entire struggle against Voldemort. Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living. And above all, those who live without.
That is the crucial distinction. Voldemort is powerful. He's immortal in a way, but he is to be pitied. Why? Because without love. It frames love not just as a sentimental emotion, but as a tangible force, something more powerful than any magic. It suggests that a short life full of love is infinitely better than an eternal life without it.
That is heavy stuff for a book about wizards and flying cars.
It is, but that's why it works. It respects the reader's intelligence and their emotional depth, no matter their age.
There's one final quote I want to discuss. It happens in the final book, in that limbo King's Cross station scene. Harry asks Dumbledore if this is real, or if it's just happening inside his head.
And Dumbledore replies, "Of course it is happening inside your head, Harry, but why on earth should that mean that it is not?"
That line, it just breaks the fourth wall in the most beautiful, profound way.
It does. It validates the entire experience of reading fiction. Yes, the story is happening in your head, Hogwarts is in your head, but the bravery you learned from Neville, the empathy you developed for Dobby, the grief you felt when Sirius died, that is real. It has affected your neural path, changed who you are as a person.
It bridges the gap between the story and the reader.
And that is the ultimate goal of any writer, to create something that, while technically fake, produces a real, lasting change.
So let's just quickly recap the toolkit we built today. If you want to cast a narrative spell like J.K. Rowling,
you need a web of relationships where characters shift roles and bond over a shared trauma.
You need complex characters who subvert their archetype and have deep, sometimes tragic, backstories.
You need distinctive voices that show us who a character is through their unique syntax and their personal filter.
You need immersive world building that uses sensory surprises and subtext instead of just dumping adjectives on the reader.
You need clever plotting that uses camouflage to hide your Chekhov's gun in plain sight.
You need to innovate within tradition by taking familiar tropes and giving them a unique twist.
And finally, most importantly, you need an emotional core that isn't afraid to look death in the eye and ask what it truly means to live.
It sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. It's a lifetime of work, really.
But as the source material says in its final sign-off, there is one lesson that kind of overrides all the others.
What's that?
Whatever you do, keep writing.
That's it. That's the whole game.
Whether you're writing a 7-book fantasy epic, a screenplay, or just a really thoughtful email, keep doing it. Use these tools, experiment with them, break them if you have to, but keep writing.
The world always needs more magic.
It certainly does. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the mechanics of Harry Potter. It has been a blast unpacking all of this with you.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.